We need to create businesses around us that serve our purpose and tie back to our why, right? Tie back to those feelings and emotions and experiences that grow me as an individual and as a person and as a human being, and then be able to bring our family and our loved ones with us.
Welcome to Spur Equity's Spur Your Wealth podcast, your ultimate guide to passive income through real estate investing. Join us as we together discover the secrets of building wealth one passive investment at a time.
From expert insights to inspiring success stories, this podcast will inspire you and empower you to take control of your family's financial future so you can live life on your own terms.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Spur Equity's Spur Your Wealth podcast. We are your hosts today, Budham Singh and Rav Singh from Spur Equity. So as you know, on the Spur Your Wealth podcast, we aim to bring successful investors and experts and thought leaders to our podcast to share their story and secrets in investing so we can all stand to benefit from their experience. And on today's episode, I am so fortunate. We're so happy to have our dear friend and partner, successful entrepreneur and investor, Derek Peterson. Derek Peterson has founded and managed several successful businesses over the years and has helped dozens of companies like ours become successful with their own marketing strategy through Adapt Media Agency. Derek is also a very, very serious capital raiser and sponsor who unleashes his marketing muscle to raise capital for very unique real estate projects. And we'll get into a lot of that today. So many things to talk about. Derek, welcome to the Spur Your Wealth podcast. Really, looking forward to the conversation today. We have so many things that we're going to talk about, or so many things that we can talk about. I know we won't get into all of it, but welcome to the podcast. So happy to have you here.
Rav, Param, awesome to always chat with you guys. Super excited about today. Let's do it.
All right. Well, obviously, Rav and I know you pretty well by now, but for our listeners, if you could just give us a very short kind of intro to your journey into entrepreneurship and into real estate and into investing as a whole, I think that'd be great for our listeners to get to know you.
Yeah. So it's funny. You look back, I look at where I am today. I often will wake up and I go, how did I get here? I don't know. Right. So when I look at that question, I'll sort of rewind back to when I was like a little kid. You talked about it earlier before we hit record on this show. And when I was like 13 years old, I lived in upstate New York. It was February and I wanted to open up a lawn business because I noticed that there's a lot of folks that were in our neighborhood that were overpaying for these landscaping companies. And I thought, hey, a 13-year-old kid, it ain't that hard to cut grass, right? I could probably come in there and chop the price at the knees at about 50% and maybe make some money. So we had a phone directory. Remember those like back in the day, like a phone book, but it was for the neighborhood. And we had a phone with a cord. And I'm dating myself, right? And I sat in the living room and I started dialing people in February, asking them if I could go quote their lawn when the snow melted. And they all thought it was cute that this 13-year-old kid was calling them up, but I was serious, right? I kind of was getting the vibe they thought it was cute, but I knocked on their door. I showed up when the snow melted, and a lot of them gave me a shot. So I picked up over 20 yards, which for the little like 27-inch push mower that I had that I was just taking and borrowing from my garage from my father, it was a bit overwhelming. But over the course of the next 3 years, kind of grew a pretty substantial, because we had a lot of houses in our neighborhood, lawn business. And I learned a lot subconsciously through that experience of what it kind of takes to start the beginnings of a business. But then I went off to college, got out of college, did the corporate thing for many years. I was in software sales out of college, then ended up in OR medical device sales. In my mid-30s, I kind of wore the corporate hat enough. And I said, you know what? I think I can do this on my own. So I decided to step out. Sort of. I put like one foot in the water. You know how a lot of us do. We'll get that side hustle rolling, see if I have the tenacity to do this, and started this business with a couple guys. And all of a sudden, in a matter of about 6 months, I was making more money in that business than I was making in my corporate job. So I said, well, what would happen if I didn't have this corporate job? I put 100% of my efforts into this business. So I cut the cord. And had this medical distribution business, which we scaled to about 2,500 independent medical distribution reps across the country pretty quickly over a course of a number of years. And I started to learn some of the things that it takes to being an entrepreneur in terms of the importance of choosing the right partners, the importance of picking the right business segments. So that company, I ended up leaving. I split from my partners and I started another medical distribution company with sort of a new set of dudes, right? I said, okay, I kind of learned these are the guys I'm going to bring over here. I want to start it again. I took all the lessons and the mistakes and the failures that came from that first medical distribution business and opened a next one and had some real good success with that one as well. We actually started to get into software development, which I didn't have any idea how to do that. And I really started to enjoy the aspect of marketing, right? Which was like marketing to attract physicians to be able to purchase our products and, really marketing to attract also distributors. So it was marketing to multiple different spaces, marketing our business. And I started to develop this knackering for, I'm air quoting right now, marketing. And after about 5 years in that space, I had decided to exit, and I was going through somewhat of a transition in my life where we all kind of hit our 40s, you want to call it a midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. I was like, you know what? I want to do what I want to do. And I really want to align with lifestyle. And that's where I really started to create some of these other businesses, which I know we're going to get into in this conversation, that were more in alignment with not being so much about making money, right? Because I think when we're younger, that's the measuring stick by which we measure our success, is how much money's in the bank account. But when I was in my early 40s, I was in a massive house. I had the $100,000 car in the garage. I had all this stuff. And I realized none of this stuff matters. It's not doing anything for me. It's not serving me. So that's when I really started to take a right-hand turn and go a different direction with my businesses. But that's the early part. You said brief. I don't know how brief that was, but that was
great. And some of the things that I resonate with myself, right? Like, I was in the corporate world for way longer, and it took me a longer period of time to really understand that I'm literally working for somebody else, right? I'm trading my time for money. Sure. I'm working to make somebody else successful, not myself. And so when I see things like people losing their jobs, I've had to lay off people myself, right? I've been forced at hand to let go of people that I know that were good. And in the corporate world, you're aligned on a spreadsheet, you're not, and so you go through those kind of motions to realize, like, at the end of the day, like, you have to make decisions based on what's good for you and your family. And like, a job may not necessarily be the best thing, right? So entrepreneurship, right? What I see from entrepreneurs is two things, right? One is, you have an idea and you're so passionate about it and you're just kind of all in, like, I'm just going to make this happen, right? There's certain mindset that it takes to execute on that, right? Take the risk and all that stuff. But the second thing is, I've seen entrepreneurs that are very, very purposeful in what they're doing, right? Aligning their passions, and two, aligning their why. Like, why are they doing what they're doing? And so some of that is, and I've now come to that, for full circle, right? That I want to do something. And Rav and I talk about this all the time. Like, we are lifestyle investors. This is not, Spur Equity is a company today. We're doing what we're doing. But at the end of the day, I want to be a lifestyle, and I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours and hours doing what we're doing. I'm trying to buy my freedom, right? And so that's what I see from an entrepreneurship. Like, it's a lifestyle that we're trying to create where we have freedom to do the things that give us passion and things like that. And for me, it's like, it's travel, it's spending time with my family, it's those things. And I know that you and I, Derek, we've had these conversations as well. So talk a little bit about how, and you just said, your journey kind of took a right turn when you kind of got to this point. So talk to us about that and the why, and what was going through your mind, and what have you done since then to create that sort of purposeful business model, as it were, right, for yourself?
Yeah, for me, it was back in about 2017, 18. I read a book, actually. It was called The Mask of Masculinity by Lewis Howes. Lewis Howes got a big podcast, and I read this book. I heard it was good. And it really talked about as like men, we struggle with wearing these masks to be able to prove something to other people other than ourselves, right? So the competitive mask and the funny mask and the athlete mask. And it's really just to live up to sort of these societal standards that have been conditioned in us over time. And I was kind of like, oh man, you know what? That's right. That's why I do those dumb things. And as I was reading through this book, and the one thing they said that just hit me like in the face really hard was like, as guys, we're supposed to suppress our feelings, right? It's, we're supposed to like suppress our feelings. We're not supposed to show emotion. We're not supposed to cry. And I was that guy big time. And they said, but they looked at like all the money you make, all the things that you do, all the things you're striving for. It's for one reason, and that's to have a feeling that comes from doing those things. So the whole purpose is to feel, yet I'm suppressing my feelings. I was like, what am I like? It was just this aha moment, guys, that I was like, okay, I'm doing this all wrong. I was like, I'm going to stop chasing money and start chasing experiences. I'm going to start living my life a different way. And that was a big epiphany for me. So I decided to start the process of, while I had this business in the medical distribution space, I was again going to dip my toe in the water. I had an entrepreneurial venture. I was going to dip my toe in something else. And I wanted to create businesses that would create a lifestyle for me and my wife, where we could do the things that were in alignment with our heart and our soul, so it didn't feel like work. I didn't enjoy what I was doing. I was doing it to make money, right? So I want to do something that made me feel, allowed me to be creative and get into that part and aspect of my life. And I want to do something that allowed me to travel the world, because I feel there's no greater way to open your mind and to experience things. So not knowing the first thing really, other than what I was doing with my businesses, I was like, I'm going to open a marketing firm and we're going to open up a travel agency. Seems like a good idea. And my wife thought I was crazy. She was a dental hygienist. I had this medical distribution business. And she's like, you don't know anything about these things. I go, I didn't know how to walk either when I was born, but I figured that out, right? Everything that I know, I didn't know at one point, right? So I've always had this insatiable desire to learn. So I knew I could learn it. So I picked up my first client. And the only reason I got that client, guys, was because I was his first boss out of college. It was Chris Benson at Reliant Real Estate Investments, which ironically is in the real estate and capital raising space. I had invested with him, but I didn't really know much about that real estate stuff. I was just like, whatever, right? So I didn't know how to do anything for them. And he's like, do you know how to do all this stuff? I'll be honest, I fibbed a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, definitely. We can do that stuff. And I was like, I can find it, figure it out on YouTube. And I did. To kind of fake it until you make it a little bit. And I'm not really condoning that, but there's certain things that I knew I could go figure it out in the time period I had to get there. And thus started the marketing firm. So we started this marketing firm. We had 3 clients, and then we started this travel business, and we went on a 2-month around the world honeymoon, my wife and I, with 3 clients. And she had like 2 clients with the travel agency, and we just went for it. In that 2-month around the world experience, we were talking a little bit before, went to places like Bali and the Philippines and Thailand and all over Europe. It was a transformative experience for us, where we're like, we need more of this in our lives. Like, this is what we want to do. We need to create businesses around us that serve our purpose and tie back to our why, right? Tie back to those feelings and emotions and experiences that grow me as an individual and as a person and as a human being, and then be able to bring our family and our loved ones with us. And, fast forward to today, we've been monomaniacally focused on tapping into industries that allow us to do things remotely, but are all in alignment with that why. So there's nothing that I do on any given day that doesn't tie back into really what we want to do, which is to have those experiences through the vehicle of passive income those businesses deliver us. And that's a big part of this, which I know we're going to dive into, and then allow us to do things remotely and travel the world. We've taken our kids to Egypt and Jordan and Turkey and Italy and Greece, and we just name it, all over the place. And we've had the privilege of doing that. And we have such a desire to take that to a completely new level as it relates to the businesses and that mission, and really make an impact around the world.
Eric, tell us, and I'll let you, Rav, ask the next question here, but just tell us real brief, where's your office going to be for the next several weeks? Just so people understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. So every year we're on the road, typically about 120 days a year, somewhere in the world, working remotely. And we leave Wednesday. So just 2 days from now, we're going to go to Tulum, Mexico. Because of the travel agency business, We've got several nights free at Secrets Tulum. It just opened. It's a new resort. They want us to come check it out and experience it so that we can share it with our travel agency clients. And then we're going to just dip into an Airbnb because we already went down there and just work remotely from Tulum. So whether it be a cafe or the rooftop where we've got a little pool and sunshine and all of that, eating some bomb tacos and really mixing it up with the locals, that'll be our home. We feel more alive when we're not here, which I know sounds weird, but that's, again, goes back to those experiences and the emotion that comes from that.
And that's part of the dream, right? I mean, you just talked about it, that, it's part of your why, that you do want to travel. You want to travel the world. So I was going to say, Derek, I mean, man, good for you guys. People just dream about this stuff, right? Majority of the people do not execute. Probably 80% of the people do not execute what you just talked about. Because I'm a firm believer that if you want to do something, just do it. You have to take the act, because it's it's that baby steps that you talked about, that, only way to know that you're going to do it is by actually doing it, not by dreaming it. Now you got to have business plans and you got to have, all these other plans and execution and all that. I get that. But ultimately, you have to move forward, because otherwise it's not going to happen. And what I heard from you and what I am learning from you, from your successful journey, is the fact that, that all started for you when you were 13 years old. I mean, you took that step forward and you started calling and you started getting those clients. So I guess what I'm saying is that you weren't afraid of change, right? Because you wanted to adapt. Actually, you wanted to adapt that change into your lifestyle. And so that's what I kind of just heard from you. And the fact that, and once again, Param and I talk about this all the time, is the fact that, you have to have a one thing. You have to have a one thing that you can focus on. And what I heard from you is that, you and your wife have that one thing. And that one thing is going to drive all the decision making for you, right? And that doesn't mean you leave everything behind. It just means that your focus kind of changes. And so that's what you've done. So, good for you, pal. This is amazing. I think hearing these type of stories, hopefully it resonates with people, and, people who've been just even thinking about maybe starting a business, or maybe even, starting a family, or starting whatever. At the end of the day, some people just dream it, right? But you have to do it to know. So what if it's not successful, right? At least you've tried it. And from there, you're not living in that box. Something else might emerge and something else might come up. I mean, Spur Equity didn't just start, 40, 50 years ago, or a long time ago. It only started 5, 6 years ago, because Param and I thought that, hey, look, we want to do something different. Just go for it. Let's just try it, right? Yeah. And the only way it happens is by doing that. And so thanks for sharing that story. I thought that was wonderful.
So I saw this quote, just to resonate on that, the piggyback off that, the dreams, right? We're talking about dreams and chasing dreams. I like this quote: dreams are not what you see when you are asleep. Dreams are things which do not let you sleep. So you got to put the work in, right? So if you do have a dream, every waking moment should be focused. And so that's where I think where I struggled for a long time in the corporate world and all that stuff. Like, what am I doing in any of this for, right? Getting a high paying job and getting money in the bank account. Like, I'm trading my time away. And we're taking vacations. I remember the aha moment for me. I was on a vacation with Rav and his family. I remember we're on a beach somewhere, and this is my week or 2 weeks of, like, we did a big trip somewhere. I forget where. It was somewhere on a beach, but my kids and his kids and our wives were all on the beach, and I had to go back to the hotel room to get on a meeting or sign a contract or do something for work, even when I was on vacation. I'm like, that can't be it, right? Like, I can't be not enjoying these moments that are never going to come back, right? And just keep working. Those were, there's pivotal moments in your life that you look back at and, like, where you're like, hey, there's got to be a better way, right? Kind of thing. So I remember that.
Yeah, it's, Rob, you brought something up which sort of resonated with me. The fear of, or the pain of regret is bigger than the pain of disappointment and failure, right? So when it's your last moments, right, we're all going to have those last moments, right? It's going to happen to all of us. None of us got out of this alive, right? And, when you see some of these studies and these interviews with folks that are in their last days, what do they always talk about? spend more time traveling, spend more time with your friends and family, and don't be afraid to go do that thing. Right. There's the feeling of regret is palpable in some of these interviews. I watch these a lot just because, and I love talking to people that are like older than me. And now I'm like getting older. So now I'm having these conversations with other people. I'm like the old person, and it's so true. Right. Chasing money, chasing the corporate thing. And listen, you got to make money, right? Because the money affords you to invest and learn and all these things. You got to go through your journey, but it can't be the only thing. It can't be your measuring stick, and that purpose. And I mentioned it, and you guys mentioned it, that there's always this like fear, or that like I'm going to fail. You probably are, right? You're probably going to fail at some of that, and that's okay. You just reframing that is just, instead of a failure, as a lesson, right? And just jump like I did when I saw a marketing firm. I was like, oh yeah, I can do all that stuff. No problem. And I was like, I'm just going to jump. I'm going to grow my wings on the way down. We're just going to figure this out, right? Because it forced me to do it. I had no choice at that point because they wrote me a check and I had to figure it out. And it sucked. Like, it was late nights. And listen, it's not easy for all those who are listening. It's hard. But when you bring in your purpose in your job and it comes into alignment and it's like on the same pathway, it is unbelievable. And I know you guys are experiencing that yourselves with the journey that you're on.
Yeah, I mean, I think two things. One, we always say when we talk to our investors and when we talk to each other about our business, right? It's not all peaches and cream. It's not all rosy, right? Like there are hard lessons that we've been learning along the way. But what Rav and I say time and time again is we either succeed or we learn. We don't call it a failure. We either succeed or we learn. That's it. That's the only things in front of us, right? So that's the mindset that everybody has to have, that don't be afraid to try new things. Like, certainly, educate yourself, certainly figure it out, but don't just sit on the sidelines. Don't just wait for there's no better time than now to try to chase that dream or do something new or whatever it is, right? And so it's either you succeed or you learn. So that's the first mindset. The second thing is the thing that, you were talking about your first client where you're like, yeah, I can do that. It made me think of interviewed Rav on one of our first podcasts, and Rav tells his story about when he got his real estate license like 20 years ago, and somebody called him up and he just got his license. Somebody said, hey, can you sell? And he was only focusing on residential at the time. And somebody called him like, hey, can you sell me a gas station? He's like, yeah, I can sell you a gas station, or I can sell you a gas station. And then in the back of his mind, he's like, he has this attitude. He has this like, I'll figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. And he was honest. He was transparent. He's like, look, I've never done this before. I just got my license. What I know about myself, that I can get it done. I know I can get you, what you need. You just tell me what you need and I'll get it done. And so that figure it out attitude is what drives Spur Equity, right? So like, I'm from consulting, I'm from analytics, and I need numbers and I need spreadsheets and I need, analysis. But you need somebody like a Rav, right? That, or you have the same mentality, is like, let's jump in. What's the worst that can happen? Let's figure it out. We'll figure it out along the way. We don't need to know everything, right? We will figure it out and we'll do good. And so like our first thing, we may not have made, 4x equity on our first deal that me and Rav did together, but we made 2x equity, right? Or whatever. We made 3x equity. And so like we call it failing forward, because we didn't do like the best, but we learned so much on that deal that it made our second deal even better, our third deal even better. And by the time we got to a place where that was only with our money. And by the time we got to a place where we're talking about investor money, we were already, through a few of these cycles to be able to say, we can apply all of these learnings and reduce risk all along the way. So those are important for anybody to go through, right? Those quote unquote failures or learnings, to be able to like refine and do things in a different way, do things in a better way. I've seen in our industry, in real estate, the people that, kind of either fail or go away are the people that can't change, right? The people that are inflexible, that can't figure out that in different markets, I have to do different things, which is a perfect segue for us to talk about. So let's, Derek, for those of you that don't know, our partnership with Derek is both on the marketing front, but also with actual projects on the real estate side. So 10Y, let's talk about 10Y. So, and the reason I bring that up now is that we've all done projects, real estate, whether it's apartment complexes and other stuff. But 10Y is a very, very unique type of project, right? So let's talk about that, because again, what we're striving to do is do things differently, do things better each time that we do them, take the learnings that we have from previous projects and do it differently. So Derek, talk to us a little bit about 10Y, why, all of us, sort of partner together to make that happen for ourselves, for our investors, and, why it's different than, your run of the mill kind of vanilla, apartment syndication.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing to preface this part of the conversation with is, as you guys had mentioned, having a marketing firm that's, built brands for real estate, capital raisers, syndicators, operators, for years, hundreds of them. I've seen like every deal. I've seen every asset class. I've seen every pitch deck, and I've seen the million and myriad of different ways in which you can create an avatar or a niche. And after a while, to me, just because I see them all, they all start to kind of blend together. They all kind of have a very similar sort of cash flow message. That's what the industry is really all about. And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's definitely people that at certain stages of their life, they need that cash flow. That's a thing. But for a lot of folks, they can sometimes maybe get cash flow married a little early in the game, where really maybe it makes more sense for them to focus on building their overall net worth to then later apply cash flow to it. So because I have optics over all these different brands and really help create them, I ran into Balakrishnan, partner now at 10Y. And our original meeting was because, much like how I met y'all, was just, he needed a brand done. I was the guy that was doing them, and we met. And with some people you click, and with some people you don't. Very much like how we clicked, this brotherhood, this immediate connection that we had. Same with Bala. Maybe it's an Indian thing. I don't know. I just like, because maybe it's something there. But we
nice.
So it was this. He started explaining to me his concept about, which we'll get into here, about building wealth over 10 years, and he wanted to call it Zen investing. And I was blown away with the concept that he had and how simple it was, yet how profound it was. And I know you guys had a similar sort of experience when we all met. It's super simple, but just light years ahead of everything else that's out there. I was actually floored by the fact that I had not heard it. Because if anyone hears all this stuff, it's me, right? I see it all. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of anything like this. This is brilliant. He wanted to call it Zen investing. I was like, oh, no, you're not calling it Zen investing. And I just met him on the phone, and he's like, okay. I was like, you're going to call it 10Y. He's like, 10Y. I was like, it's going to stand for 10 years to retirement, because that's what this whole thing is about. Because in a time where there's so many deals out there, there's so many opportunities and a lot of great options, there's also a lot of noise. And what I liked about 10Y and the vision was it just look at the name. It gave you a timeline, and it gave you a destination in the name. And that the entire platform, the entire investment thesis was focused on getting you to true bona fide retirement in 10 years by multiplying your wealth exponentially. Would you like me to kind of explain it? You also explain it very well also. I don't want to hog the mic here. Do you want me to kind of get into that, or do you want to explain the methodology?
No, go ahead. I mean, if you can talk about it briefly, like, just again, it was like you said, it's such a simple concept, but it's so nuanced that like we're not doing anything different than what people are used to. It's just there's a little bit of a nuance of why this is geared towards retirement versus doubling equity. One time. We're doubling equity 5 times, right? So you can. Why don't you spend a couple minutes on it and just kind of explain it? But that's really what I wanted to get out of this conversation, is to understand mindsets like yourself and us and Bala. We are trying to figure out unique new ways of kind of framing the same thing essentially, right? Not reinventing the wheel, but really doing things more efficiently from an investment standpoint. And that's where, the inception of 10Y kind of came up. But yeah, please spend a couple minutes on that.
I completely agree with the vernacular you just used there, which was not reinventing the wheel, because the real estate wheel is proven, right? It's been rolling for a very, very long time, and there's a proven methodology to it. But with a small little tweak, you can completely change things. So if you look at the traditional real estate model right now, and most of the cash flow, we'll say, syndications that are out there, and again, these might be a good fit for some people at that time in their life, but almost every deal is focused on cash flow. It's cash flow, because I do the marketing for it. So we're always selling cash flow or promoting cash flow. And it's very deal centric. We're focused on a deal, where this is really focused on a destination. So that's the first difference, right? Is we're destination focused, which is getting you to true bona fide retirement. It's in the name. Then with your traditional multifamily syndication, that is either, whether it's the traditional cash flow model, or the Burr method, it's really focused on, finding a property, whether they're building it or whether they're adding value to it. That first couple years of that project, whether it's value add or ground up to construction, that's where the greatest value is realized. That's where your equity multiple comes from. But a lot of these projects, for cash flow purposes, because the way in which the deal was structured, will hold on to it for 5 to 7 years, and they'll pay cash flow. And that's nice. That's nice for those who want cash flow. That's nice for the partners within the syndication, and everyone's happy. But the reality is, from year like 2 or 3 to year 7, the appreciation in the assets really only basically coming from raising your rents as it kind of goes, through those cycles. Curve of growth kind of is stifled from those first couple years. Where if you sell that property within those first couple years, after you've done your renovations, or you've built it and you've stabilized it, and you've got your tenants in there, they're paying the rents, that's where you can see those 2, 3x, 4x multiples, right? So what we really focused on is said, okay, instead of holding on to that property, let's see if we can maximize the exposure of the capital to those first couple years. And then in successive cycles, we will double the goal is to the limited partner to double their money, and take that doubled money and put it into the next deal. So if you gave us $1, in 2 years, we'd give you $2. Then we take those $2, put into the next property that we're already planning in our assembly line, which is a big part of our process, which we don't need to get into. But then those $2 become $4. Then 4 becomes 6, 12, so it continues to grow exponentially. And our goal is to do 5 cycles in approximately 10 years. Nothing in real estate is obviously exact timeline, but we can either increase the equity multiple with the deals we choose, or decrease the time. We'll be adjusting those dials for the journey for our investors. And the goal is to do 2 to the power of 5. And if you don't, it sounds a little crazy for those who might be listening, but this is simple exponential math. 2 to the power of 5 is 32. So if you keep your money and you double it 5 times, over the course of a period of time, it's 32 times what you started with. So a $400,000 investment is now worth $12.8 million. And when you see those numbers, it kind of knock you off your chair. A lot of people are like, that's BS, right? That's our initial response. And I get that. That's what was my response. But then I looked, I was like, we're doing nothing different. We're underwriting it the same way. We're doing the construction the same way. We're doing everything the same way. We are just exposing the capital to that high growth section, and then we're just putting it into the next one. And really where the secret sauce is, as you guys know, is the assembly line we're creating, the land we're entitling right now for the capital that's going to be received in 2 years. So that's what makes this whole thing hum. And that story that I just described, that 10Y methodology, is allowed us to bring investors, hundreds of LP investors, into this opportunity in an extraordinary fast period of time, because again, it's different, it's exciting, and we're blessed to have y'all part of the team and part of the journey. I know you guys have had some great success with having your investors understand the value in this.
And I want to say really quickly before I forget that what you just described is exactly how you described it to us when we first met, at a coffee house for 1 hour, right? And we were having that original meeting. And investors are amazing. They are very smart folks. They're not stupid. They understand if you're bullshitting or if you're not bullshitting. Simple as that, right? And the fact that we started this journey with you basically about a month ago in regards to starting the project and putting, bringing capital in. And Param and I are surprised that, our investors not only see it, they believe it, and we've already exceeded our expectation. Folks are coming in to us and saying, look, you know, with a smile, right? And they're saying, we see what you're doing, we understand it. It's exactly what I've done before, but yet I'm just not going to take that money. There's no cash flow, and I understand the reinvestment part of it. And so for them, they're looking truly as that lifestyle. They're looking at it as a retirement, and for them, they get the 10Y concept. They get the 10 to 12, 14 years, if that's what it takes, because they know that money is something that is for a different purpose. It's not for cash flow for today for them. So, kudos to you and Bala, and, thanks for bringing us in on this deal. And just wanted to say that our investors love it, and our investors are loving it so much, where we're still getting calls almost on a daily basis saying, "Can I still get in this deal?"
Yeah, and just for folks that are listening, I mean, I don't know when this episode is going to air, but at the time of the episode, we are nearly done with if you're ready for it, $30 million raise. We are nearly done. So by the time this airs, we will probably be done. But if you want to learn more about that methodology, spurequity.com/10y, you can go and check it out. But we are likely kind of maxed out on this project.
But
But
check with us though,
the thing that
because some people may end up dropping, so
sure,
we
yeah.
Yep.
replace you guys in.
So, but the thing that I wanted to mention is that, we are aligning ourselves with people like Derek, like Bala, like other partners that we have that are, again, we're looking for how do we do things differently? How do we do things in the new way? How do we do things that are going to work in a changing market, right? Folks that were doing stuff 2-3 years ago and making money, talk to them and see what they did in 2023. Not much, right? So we were still able to do quite a lot in 2023 and beyond, right? Have a pipeline and have things kind of in the hopper here. So if you're looking to do things in a very unique way in a proven market, again, not reinventing the wheel, but do innovative ways on how we can make money in a changing market. That's where you have to link up to us to get those opportunities, and folks like Derek and Bala. So that's really and we're big technologists as well. And so how every other industry is looking at how can we do more with less, right? Utilizing technology. And that's something that is really core to Spur Equity. I know Derek and Bala are the same way. They come from a technology, or Bala comes from a huge technology background. And so we're doing things that will drive us to more efficiency and things like that around real estate and investing. So definitely, keep connected with us to be able to see other projects like 10Y that are coming down the pipe, from these partnerships. So with that, I want to, Derek, I know we can keep talking for forever on a lot of different topics here, and I'll definitely want to have you back on as well. But as we wrap up today, I want to maybe, if you can share with investors maybe words of wisdom or a source of inspiration that got you kind of, on your journey, some clarity on your journey. I think that would be great if you can share, some final thoughts for our investors.
Yeah. So, and you guys brought up this word a few times. It's a word that's near and dear to me. If you look at some of the companies I have, they have the word adapt in it. And we talked about change and really what separates those who are successful and those who aren't successful. We all, whether it's ourselves, those who are listening, or we know people that are kind of stuck and they're struggling to move forward. If you peel back the onion, I'd gander that they struggle with the idea and notion of change. The reality is the only constant in life is change. So understanding that is accepting that and intentionally putting yourself in difficult and challenging situations so you can see what it's like to adapt. And that's the word, right? So Adapt Media Agency. I've got several other companies that have the word adapt in it because it's so near and dear to me. And it starts with you. So if you can adapt yourself, right, love yourself and be the best version of yourself and be malleable, your mindset, your personality, the way you take care of your health, relationships, spirituality, and you're constantly looking to improve, to level up, to change, to get better, to learn, to grow, then you're going to live a limitless life, right? If you just take those blinders off and you have this insatiable desire to learn and to change through learning, you're just going to increase your value. You're going to learn more and you're going to grow. You're going to be better. So, if that's a limiting factor for those who are listening, just consider that adjustment. Just start focusing on the art of change and go out and just jump into something that is incredibly uncomfortable and really hard. Go sign up for the marathon. Go on the diet. Go start the business. You're probably going to mess it up. All good. Like you guys said, you don't fail, you learn. So, just having that mindset with change, I think is probably the biggest nugget been helpful in my life. And it's so much so it's in my branding.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
That's beautiful.
It's amazing. What you said is 100% the way I look at change, right? And to me, growth comes from confrontation, right? You have to put yourself in that situation where, maybe it's a dichotomy, maybe it's whatever, right? Your mind wanders and you start talking to people about it. And I think that's where you end up growing versus saying, I'm comfortable with this and I like this and that's all what I know how to do. And that's all I'm going to do. So kudos to you, man. This is amazing what you just talked about, because to me, I feel exactly the same way that, you got to put yourself in that situation where, you have to question and you have to wonder and you have to ask those hard questions, and questions aren't hard. Answer comes very easy, right? It's right in front of you. It's peeling that onion that you kind of talked about. So yeah, I learned a lot from you just with what you just talked about.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's beautiful, man. I mean, I think if we think back into our lives, the most dramatic growth that any of us have ever had were in opportunities of difficulty, opportunities of challenge, right? So yeah, change, right? Change is where growth happens. Otherwise, we're stagnant. So absolutely. That is fantastic. That was what a great way to wrap up that podcast. So, Derek, I really want, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for being on the podcast today. I've got, even just for today, just from the conversation, I've got this renewed sense of like, hey, we got to go do something else, right? Like, we got to go do something. So I'm energized. That's great. So you've inspired me. I'm sure you've inspired, the conversation has inspired other people that are listening to it. So thank you so much for sharing your time. I know you're getting ready for a big trip here for your mobile office. So thank you for taking the time today to join us and really sharing your story and sharing your wisdom.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on your show. I always cherish some time with y'all, whether it's on the mic or off the mic. So thank you again. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And how do people get to know you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah. So, gosh, probably the easiest way would be reach out to me at adaptmediaagency.com. You can email me at Derek, it's DEREK at adaptmediaagency.com. You can find me there. Look for Derek Michael Peterson on Facebook. Friend me out. Let's become friends. We can chat. We can connect in the DM. Look up my name or Adapt Media Agency. You'll find me.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Derek. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Spur Your Wealth podcast. Again, we are Param Singh and Rav Singh from Spur Equity. Remember that your journey to financial freedom begins with both knowledge and action, where knowledge is power,
but action is superpower. So until next time, happy investing.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spur Your Wealth podcast. We hope you enjoyed the valuable insights and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on future episodes filled with actionable tips and strategies.
If you want more information about our investment projects, visit us at spurequity.com. If you have an inspiring story to share and would like to be a guest on our podcast, email us at podcast@spur.com. SpurEquity.com. Until next time, happy investing.